application code. So where do I start? At the end of the day, this is the application that has to go do what it has to do, right? So the process started with the patient calling, say, 108 service. Now, when the 108 service was called, right, it has to first find which ambulance to dispatch. See, if you look at it as an IoT application, it starts from there. If you look at it as complete, so the point is, how do you get the ambulance ID? Who gave it to you? No, it doesn't matter how it is. How did doctor know the ambulance ID? I'm just saying that's why it's a layer of IoT. It will work. You can say like the attendant in the ambulance will call the doctor and tell what ID it is. Then it's not a self-contained system. So it should start from where, like the ambulance dispatch. This is an ambulance dispatch solution. So it starts from 108 call. Where do system start? It should start ideally from a 108 call. If it's from 108 call, the doctor need not do anything. The 108 call first located, there are 25 ambulances in the area. The call came from Kondapur, wherever, they know where the call came from. So the system starts first going, okay, the code will go look at all ambulances. And that's where it gets little dynamic. So I want to find ambulances that are in the city and where the dynamic location is required. No, it didn't. That doesn't matter for me. Because I am starting with dispatch. I am dispatching only one ambulance. To dispatch the ambulance, which ambulance to dispatch, I have to locate which ambulance is closest to Kondapur. So my application will start saying, okay, which is where in the registry, which is the dynamic data, it should have location. In the repository, for things like ambulance, which don't have fixed location, I will mark the location as mobile. It's a mobile sensor. For mobile sensors, we can require, if the use case so desires, so requires, that the location is saved, if it can save. So registry should have an option. In the health ping, it should have an option. If I know my location, if my sensor has a GPS access, it should be able to, along with the health ping, also store the current location. So then that's one way of your query is extended now to say like, okay, I want ambulance types, but it's a type mobile, so I have to go get the location from the registry. So extending your API. We didn't discuss it in the class, but we didn't discuss the mobile use case in the class. But if you figure out, that's one way of solving it. I will extend the API to say like, okay, this is a dynamic, it's a mobile sensor. So I still need location, right? I still want to find the ambulance closest to Kondapur. Once I go query and find all the ambulances, and I found the closest one, now that is my ambulance of interest. So I got my ID. From that point on, I can do anything with it. First thing I'm saying that, okay, ambulance, you have to go now. You're dispatched, you have to go to so-and-so address in Kondapur. And then at the same time, I've activated the ER in the hospital. Okay, it's Kondapur, the closest hospital is KIMS. So I've activated ER in KIMS and then notified them, so-and-so ambulance is coming. And then when the doctor opens the application and refers to that incident, he does not enter the ambulance ID. The moment he opens the incident, he should know what's the current ambulance ID. Because you got it here, it's part of your application. Right? So there are different ways of doing it, but the important thing is to understand that you want to keep some abstractions. And as far as possible, not use ambulance ID, user entering the ambulance ID if you can. If you have to, it's still okay. You can still say the attendant call the doctor and like you're saying. So doctor opens up an application, the application starts by entering the ambulance ID. But then that became a static application. See, we are talking about a very dynamic platform. So which means that we said we will only rely on type and location. We have discussed it multiple times. So if you see if you can somehow model within that abstraction of keeping it like ID free. You're not requiring anybody to know ID. Like in this, when you do the get ID, nobody has to know what ID it is. In your use case, I have to know what ID it is. Somebody has to tell me and I have to enter it. If you believe that the ID is completely internal, then you'll find some other solution. Okay, type and location is not sufficient here, but you'll figure out some other solution for that. If you believe ID is internal, it should never be modeled anywhere in the application end users. End users should not know about ID. Here you get the ID, but you don't care what ID came because you queried by type and location. It returns some ID and it's just a reference for you from that point on. Whether ID happens to be ambulance 001 or 020, it doesn't make any difference for you. It's dynamic. No, but in our system, where does ambulance ID fit? Only sensor ID is fit for us. No, but you have to model it. If you are saying ambulance ID, I can have a type ambulance temperature sensor, right? But where is ambulance ID fitting in all of this? We only say there's type, there is sensor and location. No, that cannot be. That is not location. Ambulance ID cannot be location. Ambulance ID is not location, because location means only one thing in your system. The fact that ambulance mobile doesn't matter. I can get ambulance location at any given time. If you go with the dynamic, the registry keeping the location, I can get the location. So ambulance ID cannot be overloaded as a location. Right? No, it's not like there's only one way of doing this. Any number of ways. All I'm talking about is like as a platform that's enabling applications, you have to understand your abstractions and you have to stick to it. We said sensor ID cannot be used anywhere. You have to stick to it. Other than dynamically, you get the ID and that reference you directly pass. That's how we're going to use IDs. And this reference I may use to set it somewhere. But nowhere in this am I going to have a hard-coded sensor ID. And the extension of that is like users should not be required to enter sensor ID. Like you assume, your doctor's application, which is the end user accessing this, should not be required to enter sensor ID. We are saying don't even model it here. Why are you allowing your user to enter sensor ID? So it's abstractions we have to make sure we understand the boundaries, and then within the abstractions, see how to extend it. You may have to extend it in this case. Or you relax the abstraction itself. But the relaxation that you did was not okay because ambulance still has a location. So the location cannot become the ambulance ID. Dynamic doesn't mean it still has a location, exactly same location, meaning wise, it's exactly same as wherever that was. Get sensor here. The ambulance location is exactly same as this location. So I can't say I'll overload this to be the ambulance ID, because the ambulance also has a location. So to choose an abstraction that doesn't conflict with anything else you've already chosen. Okay? Anything else? Any questions? Okay, thank you. All the best for the exam and all the best in life. Thanks.